Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah al-Kareem, alhamdulillah, and welcome back to another episode of Life's Adornments, where we're discussing child rearing, its benefits, its virtues, its many ups and downs, and most importantly, how can we return our affairs back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which was left for us as a roadmap in all of our endeavors. So anything we do in life, we always return it back to Allah and the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so they can be correct and we can receive their great reward. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, فَاسْتَقِمْ كَمَا أُمِرْتَ, be upright as I commanded you. So when it comes to upraising children correctly, we have to do it in accordance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the first thing we were talking about that the child should learn is tarbiyya imaniya, to acculturate them to what is the correct belief, what is the correct way to understand and know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and know the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. To help us with these endeavors, we have Sheikh Luqman al-Hakim, who is a teacher at Zad Academy and KIU, and an imam and teacher for over 30 years. Bismillah, mashallah. Without further ado, we agree and introduce our that guest, Sheikh Luqman al-Hakim. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, so let's get into this matter, inshallah ta'ala. We're talking about salah and tying the child's heart to the masjid, as we have the hadith, which inshallah I would like you to mention, about the ones who are under the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of His throne on the Day of Judgment.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala al-mab'uthi rahmatan lil alameen, nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. The Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam told us that there will be 7 under the shade of Allah Azza wa Jal on the Day of Judgment, where there's no shade but His. And of course, the shade of Allah Azza wa Jal is an issue of dispute, whether it is Allah's shade or it is the throne's shade or it is a shade that Allah creates. And the most authentic opinion is that this is one of the attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal, so we leave it as it is. The Prophet said Allah's shades, then we have to believe in that as it is. And he mentioned among these 7 a young man whose heart is connected with the masjids, meaning that he finds no tranquility except by offering his prayer in the masjid and staying there most of his time. If we want success for our children, we usually think of how healthy they are. We think of their education, and we select the best of schools. We think of what clothes they're wearing and what stylists they are having. And this is not what Allah wants us to only focus on. Rather, the priority should be to get closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. All of these things are okay. Take care of your child's health and wealth and education. This is cool, it's fine. But what is more important is whether your child is bound to go to Jannah or bound to go to Nar. And whether you have written the strategy that he should follow. So the strategy is done with. The implementation is the problem. So what is the strategy? The Prophet said, instruct your children to pray when they're 7 and beat them if they don't when they're 10. So you have to upbring your children to pray on time. And this is not difficult. When they're 7 years of age, you instruct them 5 times a day, 360 days a year, and for 3 years. So this is 4,000 plus times you say, go and pray. Did you pray? Pray in front of me. MashaAllah, you're doing well. MashaAllah, my son, my daughter is praying all the time. MashaAllah, this and that. Give them words of encouragement, but no beating, no force. Just give them encouragement, reminders. And this goes for Fajr as well as Isha. Some Muslims may think that, wow, I'll just tell them to pray Maghrib or Dhuhr. 2 out of 5 is good. No, it's not good. You have to instruct them to pray even at an early age. So even the child is 7 years of age, you walk your child, your son, and take him to the masjid with you. Even at this early age, it is a little bit difficult, but come on. You would do exactly the same when it comes to his school without any problem. You would force him, you would shout at him to go to school because you know that his degree is dependent on it. But don't you know that paradise is dependent on his prayer? So you have to fix this into him. And if we look into the Sunnah, we would find that the Prophet ﷺ used to accompany his children, his grandchildren, to the masjid. Umamah bint Abil As, his granddaughter, he used to carry her in prayer. Al-Hasan wal-Hussein, many times they come and interrupt his sermon. Sometimes he would carry them and deliver the khutbah while they're next to him. Al-Hasan in one incident was next to him, and the Prophet is preaching the people and looking at Hasan, then looking at the people, looking at Hasan. He loves the child. And he said that this son of mine is a Sayyid. He's a master, and Allah would reconcile between two big factions of the Muslims and would stop a war. And this is what had happened. So encouraging the children to go to the masjid where they feel that this is the origin of Islam, where they can see that the Muslims are gathering, whether they're black or white, whether they're rich or poor, whether they're locals or immigrants, they're all Muslims. No differences. The first row is not for the locals. It's for anyone that comes first. Unlike in other places where you give priorities to the locals or to the people who are wealthy or influential. In Islam, it's different. The house of Allah, this masjid, is for everyone. So they can see the beauty of Islam manifested in front of them. They are also taught at an early age that everything is dependent on your prayer. How is that? The Prophet said, ﷺ, the first thing a person is held accountable on the Day of Judgment is salat, is prayer. So if it is fixed and good, then all of his good deeds are past. And if his prayer is invalid or not good, all of his good deeds are cancelled. So this shows the child from an early age that prayer is important. Now one would say, what is the importance of prayer? Akhi, Muslims pray 5 times a day. This is the minimum. This is the prerequisite of being a Muslim. And when they pray 5 times a day, it's energizing their heart. It's keeping this connection with Allah Azza wa Jal. So even if you fall weak or fall behind or maybe a bit heedless, when you pray, all of this is gone. Unlike those who pray only once a week, they go to their temple or go to their house of worship once a week, and the rest of the week they are heedless. As one of them said, that the Christians, for example, worship God on Sunday, and they worship Barclay Bank the rest of the week. This is not true for all Christians. Of course, there are good and bad. Like in Muslims, there are good and bad, but the vast majority are going away from the houses of worship. In Islam, we put this into them from an early age, and this would pay off later on. So yes, we teach them to pray when they're 7. And when they're 10, if they neglect prayer, we beat them up. And when they're an adult, we can't beat them. We can just remind them. And if they go astray, Salat will bring them back to Islam 5, 10 years later on. So even if they divert a little bit, even if they forget a little bit, inevitably with the dua of the parents and with the prayer that these children continue to pray, yet they're heedless, they do sins, but they pray, it will inevitably bring them back to the straight path.
Yeah, just for clarification, because in the Western context, when we say beat them up, that implies like bloody nose and broken ribs. That's what beat them up means, but I'm sure that's not what you intended.
No, the Prophet ﷺ explained to us, as did the companions of the Prophet, that such beating up is not with a baseball bat. So you don't break the head of the child, say, go and pray, I'm gonna smash your head. No, the beating up is to be done so that it does not break a bone. It does not shed any blood. It does not leave a mark. So the beating is not a painful, physically, process, rather than it's a sentimental sort of punishment. So this is the child that I cuddle, that I mush and kiss, that I love and express my love. When it comes to a point where the child does not pray, I spank him. So this is a good thing to do, and show him that what he's doing is crossing the red line, rather than just say, may Allah guide you, and leave him. So you have to, the beating process is there in Islam, but it is not a violent action, and it's not an act of transgression, rather than it is a divine instruction from Allah Azza wa Jal to help and reprimand this child before it goes out of hand.
Yeah, so we're talking about taking disciplinary actions.
Correct.
Yeah, which has different stages as well. It's not always directly going towards beating. It's a reminder, a strict saying, taking away things, different ways a person can discipline.
Yeah, by the way, this is maybe less than a 1% there, because throughout the 3 years from 7 to 10, the constant reminding would definitely make the child grow up to pray. So in rarely less than a 1% that you may refer once in a lifetime to just bring the child back to track.
Yeah, and to clarify your point as well, this happened to me once in my life. I actually got a beating for fooling around in prayer. So,
Alhamdulillah. You didn't do it afterwards?
No, I didn't. Barakallahu feek, Sheikh. Viewers, we're going to pause for a short break, and we'll be right back to discuss more issues of tarbiyah imaniyah and raising children with a correct consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they may be firm in their adulthood upon knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and knowing and following the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome back to our second segment of Life's Adornments, where we're talking today about tarbiyah imaniyah and raising the children in a way that is according to the tradition of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and what Allah came with in his kitab, in his book. We talked lastly about salah, its importance, the child having a connection to the masjid, and I would like to sort of emphasize a point which I just remembered. Many times I remember when I was younger and I would be instructed to pray, prayer felt almost as a burden, as a duty, like do your homework, clean your room. So I would say, okay, I'm going to do my homework, wash the dishes, and then I'm going to pray. I didn't have a connection to salah really. I didn't know the sweetness of prayers. So how is it important not only to teach the action of the matter, but also a spiritual sort of connection, a love of the action, a reasoning behind this action as well?
Well, unfortunately, it is a package deal.
Yes.
Why do I say unfortunately? Because I do the same mistake. See, I come back home frustrated from the way that people drive, and the way we drive in Saudi is, whoa, it's the Wild West. And problems are there in my life. I'm not perfect. So I come into the house, two of the children are fighting, they're coming to me, shouting at one another, complaining to me, and I'm frustrated. So I reprimand them on the spot by saying, you always shout, you're impolite, you are not brought up in a good way. Did you pray? So it is becoming as an insult. It's becoming as a duty rather than something that you can taste the sweetness of. And this is wrong. So I always encourage parents not to use prayer as a form of punishment or a cause of punishment. So if I want to beat my child, I say, you shout a lot, you always fight with your siblings. Did you pray Asr? No. Then okay, I will spank the child. This is wrong, because it will stick in the back of my mind that prayer is a punishment. And so many times I get my own grown-up children when they sit together and they laugh and say, you remember when daddy used to wake up for Fajr? He wakes us up for Fajr, and he goes to wake the other sibling and come back to us, and we say, yeah, we prayed, and we go to the bathroom and just put some water on our hands, and they were like 7 years, 8 years of age.
Sure.
So they are confessing, we used to lie. So I ponder upon that. Why is that? And the reason is that we are not taking the full package. We're just taking the part that deals with salah. Okay, what about the part that deals with watching Allah? And be aware that Allah is observing us and watching us. What about the part of finding the sweetness of salat and how it gets us closer to Allah Azza wa Jal? What about, maybe this would bring us up later on to another way of instilling in them the fear and love of Allah Azza wa Jal. What about dua? So it's a package that we fail to deliver, and this is why children feel that it is a burden. But when I take my son with me to the masjid, and every time we go, I buy him ice cream. It's good for the dentists, not good for his teeth. But I do something that would help my child love the process of going to the masjid. When the elders in the masjid encourage the children when they see them, instead of frowning in their faces or telling them not to do this, do that, like so many elders do. When the elders are wise, and when they see the children, they greet them, they kiss them, and they say encouraging words to them, the children appreciate prayer, and they would start to love it and do it without being forced to do it. But this package deal is not only limited to salat. It is also found in every single aspect of Islam. You have to have the full package so that you would have the best effect, inshallah, that you can see.
And this definitely goes into another point, which we want to talk about now, is dua. I remember, and I'm just being completely honest, perhaps somebody can learn it, from my mistakes. I would only make dua when I was younger, when I was in trouble. That's the only time I made dua, when I really needed Allah. And by the way, this is something that's not only limited or exclusive to children. I think many adults never ask Allah for anything except when they're in a dire need, or make salah in a dire need. And as you said, it's a package deal. So I learned later on in life that you could just make dua. You should make dua in all situations when you're pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when your life is going good, to say thank you. Dua is something that's essential. So how do we ingrate this from a very young age, where children just don't make dua when a beating is coming, when bad grades are coming, or something as bad is happening?
Well, dua is a very wide topic. And to be honest with you, a lot of the Muslims fail in the field of dua. And this failure is due to their ignorance, number one, and to Satan, number two. The devil, shaitan, Iblis, knows that dua takes them straight to Jannah. The Prophet said, alayhi sallam, ad-du'a'u huwa al-ibadah.
No.
Dua, calling Allah Azza wa Jal, is the best, the ultimate form of worship. because it's a direct connection. The beauty of Islam, you have something, you ask Allah directly. You don't have to come to the priest or to the rabbi or to the monk and say, oh, Father, forgive me for I have sinned. You don't have to come to me and ask me to make dua for you. No, you ask Allah Azza wa Jal directly. This connection makes you God-fearing. It makes you aware of Allah Azza wa Jal. So usually, we have to put this in our children. And this is exactly what the Prophet used to do. In a well-known hadith, Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, and with his father, he said, I was riding behind the Prophet ﷺ on a mule. And this shows you that it is permissible to have two riding on a beast if the beast can take it. So the mule was a strong mule, and it was carrying the Prophet ﷺ and his companion, his cousin, Ibn Abbas. And Ibn Abbas was like 10 years, 11 years of age, so a young boy. But look at the advice given by the top, by the head of the Islamic State, the real Islamic State, not these wannabes, by the Messenger of Allah to his young cousin. He said, Ya ghulam, inni u'allimuka kalimat. Oh boy, I'm going to teach you a few words. And he was a learned boy. So he was putting it at the right place. احفظ الله يحفظك. Observe Allah, and Allah Azza wa Jal will protect you. إذا سألت فاسأل الله. When you ask, ask only of Allah. And when you seek guidance only from Allah Azza wa Jal. And acknowledge that whatever happens to you, it was prescribed. As long as Allah prescribed it, no one can prevent it. The hadith is long and it has so many lessons we can learn from, but the biggest lesson is that the Prophet ﷺ, in his 60s, taking the time off to teach this child something that helped in making this child one of the greatest scholars of all times. Ibn Abbas was the habr of this ummah, and he was the translator of the Quran, and he was among the great scholars of the companions. May Allah be pleased with him. So this is what we should do with our children. Akhi, we do not communicate with our children. And I'm guilty as charged. I'm not saying that I do communicate with my children. I have so many things on my plate, which is not an excuse. But their mother tells me that if I spend with my children 10 or 15 minutes after a meal, she says this has a positive impact beyond recognition. She tells me, you remember the time we sat after dinner and you told them about an experience you had or an incident that took place or something you shared with them? They spoke about it for days, learning from it, getting lessons from it. She says, you can change the children more than I do. And this is true because she sits with them 24/7. Well, I don't. So putting this into the children whenever they want something, and I can give it to them, but I say, make dua for Allah Azza wa Jal. They would relate that, okay, I made dua, Allah made it happen. And this is the truth. So many times as ungrateful Muslims, we tend to say, Ya akhi, I made 2 or 3 du'as, Allah never responded to me. Allah never answered. I've been asking Allah for 10 years for something and it never happened. Subhanallah. Can you please count the things that you ask Allah to happen? And if you put your mind to it, you'll find that there are thousands of things that Allah made happen to you. But because you're ungrateful, humans are ungrateful by nature, we don't remember the good things. We only remember the bad things. So Yeah, I ask Allah Azza wa Jal for this and this and this, and it never happened. Though I ask Allah for thousands and thousands of things, and it all came through, alhamdulillah. So we have to put this in the children. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make it easy for us to go to the fun fairs. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make it easy for us to find the brand of ice cream you want in the supermarket. Say, may Allah Azza wa Jal make it easy to buy a new car. And the child does this. And I've seen this hundreds of times. Children of 5 or 6 years of age, when they're talking to you, they would do this. Ya Rab, do this and that. Ya Rab, we managed to go to Mecca or to Medina. And I'm looking, what is this child doing? They know that the way to answer their needs and to attain it and obtain it is through dua. If we manage and succeed in putting this in our children's hearts so that they relate to Allah, excuse me, this would definitely add a lot of value when they grow up.
Yeah, we even learn that the izzah, the dignity of the Muslim is in being free of people, is being able to only rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Correct.
So this is a very crucial point, and alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair for another amazing session. May Allah reward you. We're going to stop here, unfortunately, this time to end our segment, but thank you so much for coming and sharing your knowledge. Viewers, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you benefited greatly in this program. Until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.